All right, everybody. Welcome back to another week here on the Patterson Report. As always, I'm Brandon. He's Ryan. We have an extremely special guest this week. You've seen him on Twitter. He's an assassin with the quote tweets. Nick Piccone here with us on the show. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. Make sure you throw him a follow @_Piccone on Twitter. It's vengeful. It's awesome. And like I said, we have a bad man in the replies.
Thanks for having me. And I said it before, I hate better than I love. I've learned that over the course of the last few years, not being able to celebrate the way, we did in '08 and the way we did in 2017, 18. So I've got a cold heart now.
They got to put that shit on the flag for Philadelphia. We hate better than we love.
That calendar year, just right through the heart. It did it for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
But I think we're heading towards some more celebration unless they break our heart in 2022-esque fashion again. But this is a different team. I'm interested in your assessment on the state of the Phils today.
I'm good. I think they've shown us it is a different mindset. Last year it was almost like, can we get there again? It was all they weren't like as adamant about getting to the World Series and winning it. Maybe they were, but I just didn't feel that. I didn't have that feeling that they believed that. And then once they got the NLCS, I believe they're like, okay, like we can win this thing. And then when they choked against the Diamondbacks, I think that's when, it's kind of like they still have a fun time, but Rob Thompson said it before, this group has one thing in mind. And I don't think that's something we heard a lot last year. And it's something that we know they can at least get to the NLCS. They've proven that 2 years in a row. So why not have that mindset to, as soon as you get there, maybe the switch flips. I don't know. We'll see. Is that who they are? Maybe we'll find out again this year. I hope it's not who they are. I hope they do obviously get to the World Series and win it. Because this group is fun, man. Like I've had so much fun watching them the last, really 3 years. 2021 was kind of fun, but they fell short, obviously, of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But like they've been there, they've been close enough. And then the 2022 run just was like magic. And then even last year was kind of magical, before games 6 and 7 of the NLCS. So yeah, like I'm cool with, obviously lose, like you just got to win series, right?
Yeah.
So they lost today. I mean, it sucks, but it's not like their offense is going to fail along the way, like into the summer, into the fall. Playoffs are a different story, but last year they started out slow and they turned it on when they needed to. I just think that's the only difference this year is they didn't start off slow, but I still think, they'll have that motivation after the All-Star break, into August, into September. And hopefully we're sitting here a few months from now as world champs.
Yeah, I think this team has all the pieces. I think it has the right guys at the helm. Like I'm a diehard Sixer fan, probably almost above anything else, to be honest. And there's such key differences between these two teams where like I have a feeling that like Bryce Harper won't let the locker room fail. I think he felt like he let Philadelphia down last year with the way Arizona went. I feel the same way about Wheels, about Nola, although he's probably the shakier one of that trio. Like there's enough guys there where losing's not an option. There's a ton of pride. Like you're right, they have fun, but this is a very business-like team between innings 1 through 9. Pre-game, post-game, they have a blast. They're fun to follow, but it feels like this team has like the mental makeup to do it. I do think there's going to be some regression towards the mean. Just by the way they started. Our starting pitching, we had 4 guys in the top 6 in ERA. You're going to find the center there at some point throughout the season. You're starting to see it now with, Nola got hit around a little bit. Wheels has had a start or two that's gone awry, but I still think even like this team regressing to the mean is still far and away the best team in the East. I still think they have the Braves number mentally. So I think you're right. The NLCS is going to be the test. We've avoided the Dodgers so far. I hope we can do it one more year, but that's that's going to be where we find out a lot about this team, because the regular season they have it cinched. I don't worry about Atlanta, but my heart can't stand us having 2 Sixers in the same city where the second round is where the fun stops. So I'm hoping that's not going to be.
Yeah, and I think that part of their mental makeup is that they did have a tough time. The way Bryce talks, he's like, we hate losing more than we like winning. And I think he said that this past week. So it might have been, before that, but I distinctly remember hearing that quote. And we didn't really hear that as much, last year. Year before, it was like we weren't even sure if they were a playoff team. They finally got to the playoffs. I think we're pretty set that, okay, they're a playoff team. Even if they don't win the division, that's nice. And it's never been about the division the last 2 years. Like, we've understood that. But it'd be nice, get off the schneid a little bit, maybe get a division title there. But again, if they don't win it, it's not gonna, I think, dampen the mood and everything. And they've gone through a lot of injuries recently, so that's also part of it. And they're sticking it out, and that's all I could ask right now.
Is it bad that I don't care if we win in the division? I know we're gonna have this talk probably closer to October. With the teams that get the buys losing more often than not. I think we want to. I like that wild card spot. Don't fix what's not broke. That's what I'm trying to say. Because this team gets hot. I know you were talking about Bryce. I think he's going to go on one of those runs. He goes on those 15, 20 game runs where he's just an absolute killer. We saw 2 home runs today. So got to be happy with the Phillies.
Yeah, they the time off I buy, because I've played baseball, so I understand the maybe not the mindset of a professional athlete, but if the professional athlete's telling you that the time off does kind of mess up your rhythm, then you probably should believe them, or at least think that they're telling the truth on their end. But we've also seen teams that have had that off time, like the Astros. It's mental makeup too. It's not just physical. You got to be able to handle that mentally. And I just think the Braves haven't been able to handle that mentally very well. Hopefully the same thing goes this year. And hopefully if the Phillies are in that position mentally, they can handle it well, a lot better than the Braves did. But, it's all about the team too. I just look at the Astros, because I know the Dodgers went through the same thing and they struggled after that time off.
Yeah.
But the Astros, I just look at them and I'm like, maybe they're the outlier, but at the same time, a team has done it. So if you could get that rhythm and kind of mimic staying in that rhythm and not get quote unquote rusty, then you're in good shape.
Yeah. And I think, look, Atlanta has a fan base. I'm not going to call them a good fan base, but they have a fan base. But there's something about, lull or not, there's something about knowing what's waiting for you as the home team. There's an excitement of just we got to split these first 2, just get us to Philly. And that was the mindset the last 2 years. They ain't still the mindset this year, just because you start off away, split away, and don't let them leave Citizens Bank Park. And that's been the the formula. This isn't something I planned on talking about today, but I'm interested in your opinion. I've been to an NLDS game and an NLCS game. I've been fortunate enough to have buddies that can get tickets cheaply. Is there something to be said for the fan base mellowing as the playoffs go on because of who's able to go to the games?
It's possible. It's been a while. I haven't been there the last 2 years during the playoffs just because my schedule hasn't allowed me to. But, I was in, at 2009 at the NLCS, the Jimmy Rollins walk-off against the Dodgers. Incredible. But at the same time, they were losing most of that game, and we're just kind of like, crap, they're going to lose this. They're going to go back to LA tied 2-2. Or was it the next night they were still in Philly? But just not, the atmosphere, maybe not exactly the way you expected. And I've been to Flyers playoff games, and that's like a whole different animal. It's incredible there. So, yeah, I have heard that and people say that, especially the NLCS last year, where the true quote unquote or like real fans get priced out of that stuff, and the atmosphere is just not the same. And you kind of came across on the TV a little bit. Game 6 and 7 against the Diamondbacks. Like we were waiting for the Phillies to do something, but then like if they did something, it was kind of more mellow compared to like the Brave series, So I have seen that, and I have seen people say that, and I'm not there, so I can only go by their word. And it's obviously something that is out there.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody, so I work for a radio station in Delco, and we hook up a lot of business owners and whatever with tickets to the playoffs. And when I went to the NLCS game, it felt a little bit like that. Like it kind of felt a little bit like tourism, kind of, where you had all these people that saw these crazy crowd pops and all on TV, and they just wanted to be a part of it. But then if you remember that series, I mean, it was a low-scoring series for the most part. So you would have people where I would say the fans who were there in May, June, July are going to be rowdy regardless. And you had a lot of people waiting to kind of join in on something. And when you have enough of those people, then everyone's just waiting for a moment to jump on. Whereas I would say some of like the more diehard or like, as we like lovingly call like mentally ill, like Philadelphia fans who are just lunatics, they're not shelling out $400 a seat to sit in the nosebleeds. Right. I mean, they don't got it.
I got lucky. I got chosen for the lottery to get standing room only tickets for Game 7. At least my section wasn't like that. We were, there was a lot of nerves. Let me just say that because you couldn't believe that this was happening. Like, oh my God, it's like maybe that's what it was. Part of the shock factor. Like, oh my God, we actually went to a Game 7. Like,
could have been.
We should have ended this series a lot sooner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my section was really loud, so
and it's true. It's true in every sport. Anything can happen at Game 7. So then, even in Philly, like you kind of like when you lose, like if they won Game 6 to tie the series 3-3, I think Game 7 would have been a lot different atmosphere. And I don't believe in like the game momentum after the Phillies lost in Atlanta, Game 2 with that spectacular play by Michael Harris, double off Bryce Harper. That was like a gut punch, but I wasn't like, scared coming back to Philly with a tied 1-1. Like I was like, listen, Game 3 is a whole new game. Like that Game 2 is not going to carry over, and it did. And I'm definitely a proponent of that. But that NLCS Game 6 to 7 was just kind of like what it almost felt like the momentum Arizona had, even though the Phillies won Game 5. Definitely felt weird coming back to Philly. It's like, okay, if they don't win Game 6, then it's almost like we didn't trust them to win Game 7. Mm-hmm. And it sucks to say that, even as a Philly fan. Like we don't believe that in the moment. Like we're here, and I'm just waiting for them to give me something. I really wasn't like accepting of what happened until the final out. I heard Scott Fransky call it on the radio. It was just. It was head of the TV, so I heard it before it was shown on TBS, and it was just like, I can't believe that happened. And it was definitely like a choke. So it was like, okay, there's not an excuse we can use. They choked. So maybe that helps them this year because there was no excuse. There was no major injury that cost them. It was Craig Kimbrell blowing it in Arizona, and then the offense just not getting the job done.
Yeah,
that's all. That's what happened. So it's up to them to fix it.
Huge gut punch to watch that in person. By the way, them storming CBP. Huge gut punch in person,
man. That's rough.
Bigger than I could have thought.
But I'm hoping you mentioned the offense letting them down, and when you look at the Phillies outfield at the moment, you can kind of there's a couple guys in the outfield who, the offense could let them down at any given moment. I'm a big proponent of Brandon Marsh, so I'm not talking about him in the slightest. But you got guys like we're leaning on guys right now like Whit Merrifield to play serious innings, David Dahl to play serious innings. Castellanos is hot and cold. He's hot right now, and I love it, but he could abandon you at any moment. How important is it at the deadline for Dombrowski to go find a solid bat in the outfield? Because I hear all the stuff about the relievers, and I get that every year you want a reliever. But to me, like the red alarm siren is in the outfield.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's got to be priority number one. I remember the Phillies being linked to Teoscar Hernandez, and I'm like, oh man,
I'd be down.
wouldn't that have been a great signing? The year he's having with LA right
Yeah.
now. And obviously there's rumors out there that he wants to stay there long term because it was only a 1-year deal. So yeah, I doubt he's well, definitely not this year, but even next year, he's probably not going to be, here. So what else? Who else can they look at? And I know there's rumors out there, Luis Robert and some other, possible rentals or long-term solutions. I don't think we're really going to know like the hand. Even Sam Fold was on the Phillies pregame show yesterday on the radio and said we really don't even have a list. We're going to wait until we get closer to the deadline to where we know our exact needs, and obviously outfield is part of that. But they seemingly don't have a rankings list right now.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's too early, but you definitely can't rely on your outfield you have now. That's for sure. And injuries happen too. So, and I do think Johan Rojas is going to be back up at some point. I didn't necessarily disagree with the decision to send him down, but I think it clearly hampered them today against the Padres. Yeah. But getting him every day at bats, Sanford was talking about, getting him the bunt, more and stuff like that in AAA. He never played in AAA until now because he went from AA right up to the Phillies last year.
Yeah,
so
forgot about that.
Maybe, you bat him leadoff, you get him as many at bats as you can, and hopefully he gets that, down to when he can come back up and contribute that way offensively, because he's your best center fielder. I don't think Marsh is a bad center fielder. I don't also necessarily think he made a bad choice in today's game. He made that great play to start the game, but it was a do or die in that last inning, whether he was going to catch it or not. I mean, he could have caught it, but he made the decision to go for it and it just didn't work out. It wasn't like he made a bad decision. It was just physically he didn't make the play. So, defensively, I don't think they're in a terrible hole with Marsh out there. Even if it's just him and left and Rojas at center. But I have a feeling, even if they do get an outfielder before the trade deadline, Rojas will probably be the center fielder going into the playoffs. That's just my gut feeling right now. So whoever's in left, Marsh will probably platoon with perhaps, maybe not even platoon. Like it is early, but I'm not necessarily buying whoever they get at the trade deadline is going to be the everyday starter the way Nick Castellanos is the everyday right fielder. I don't know if that's the.
If it's Luis Robert though, then that changes. But I'm with you. Hold on, because you just made the exact face I made when we were linked to Luis Robert for the price tag Chicago wants for him.
I was going to
considering
he's
Juan Soto. Come on.
I mean, he's hitting a shade over 200 off a bad injury. I mean, get real. I'm not giving up any top prospects.
He's better than that.
My face was more like I know they're linked to, different players like that, and I'm not gonna say I know everything about these players and what I would give up or not give up. But yeah, if a player's price is too high, and and I know we talked about it a lot last year because Juan Soto was a Padre, but he's still technically going to be a free agent. He hasn't re-signed with the Yankees. He's in his last year of his deal. Will they get Juan Soto? Who knows? Like, that would be crazy. But that's next year. Like, obviously the Yankees are not going to trade him to the Phillies this year. So
those comments from ownership is kind of sus, though, if you ask me about, we could cut some payroll.
Yeah, that always rubs me the wrong way, and I get it in their position, but as a fan, you never really want to hear payroll talk. Like,
everyone's like,
man, like
chicken buckets.
All right, raise the price to $20 a beer. I'll buy it. Just go get Juan Soto or something like that.
Yeah,
I put the best team on the field, and Juan Soto is obviously having an incredible year, and but I don't. That's just me bringing up like my. Fever dream for next year. Having like Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, and Juan Soto on the Phillies the way It almost feels like the passing of the torch to the Phillies from the Nationals when, Jason Worth going to the Nationals was almost like the beginning of their ascent. And we were all kind of making fun of him, like, how you're going to the Nationals. And meanwhile, within a few years, they were a playoff team. So it's like the inverse of that. But yeah, I don't know if they would make a move before this trade deadline for an outfielder, if they like a long-term move, if they believe they have a shot at Juan Soto. I don't know. We'll definitely see. I think the caliber of the move that they do make, because I do think they have a lot of room. Like, they didn't sign any of those huge free agents in the offseason, so they do have money to spend. Will they spend it for a long-term solution or a short-term? And that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look ahead, too, at this roster. I mean, you got Ranger Suarez, who's got, I think, 1 year left of arbitration at this point. You got to get him paid. You got to get Bone paid, I think, after, next season. So, I mean, you got some guys who are going to come around for some checks that you want to make sure you're able to pay at that time. So I'm kind of with you. I'd rather a 1 year rental and just give us some offseason flexibility to keep the important guys in the building. But what remains to be seen. It's been kind of weird that I haven't heard as many rumors as you would think, given that we're less than a month away from that trade deadline.
Yeah, it seems like all the first place teams are always high in regards to these rumors and stuff. And what are the Yankees going to do? What are the Orioles going to do? What are the Dodgers going to do? So, maybe there's a reason, the Phillies are kind of silent, because they do have that flexibility in a way they didn't have last year. We're kind of hoping they make that big splash, for Soto, at least by the deadline last year. And it was just not, they weren't making those flashy moves, but I think this year they're in a good position to do that. Whether they do, we'll see. I don't necessarily think it's a season ender if they don't, depending how this outfield plays out. Is Rojas going to improve? That way you can bring him back up. David Dahl, I just don't think he's going to be here the rest of the year raking. Cody Clemens is going to get some rehab in left field. I read a report a little bit earlier when he goes to I think he's going to Lehigh Valley for a rehab assignment, and he might play left field. So they're going to try different things out there. It's going to be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. Dombrowski hasn't made a signature trade, though. He likes to deplete the farm systems a little bit wherever he goes. And this Phillies one's kind of building up a little strong. Aiden Miller's looking good. Mick Abel's not, but, he hasn't made it. He hasn't made the move yet. He's going to make it.
Yeah.
Mason Miller. I'm looking at Mason Miller. I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's going to go for a reliever instead of an outfielder.
Yeah, obviously, perfect scenario. They go both positions. But listen, the starting rotation has been better than I think we all expected, just in terms of length too, because last year, I can't remember, maybe there were a handful of starts in the first half where the relievers were going like at least 7 or 8 innings. It always felt like the bullpen was used every single game by the 6th or 7th inning. And I hated that. I was like frustrated, mostly because the pitchers couldn't extend themselves. I mean, they were at like 100 pitches through 6 innings. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And I was afraid that they would burn out pretty easily, but they did kind of bounce back a little bit, and the bullpen was fire pretty much all year, save for Craig Kimbrell and a few people going through. He obviously had a great start to the year, all-star, but yeah, I think I was a little upset that he was being used so much in the beginning because he was older, because I was hoping he would not burn out. He still had the velocity there, but he was just like missing his spots so much, getting the pitch clock violations, and it's like, what is going on? And he got one against the Phillies this past weekend when he was with they played the Orioles. So that was frustrating, and I possibly played a role in his, I guess, meltdown against the Diamondbacks. But I was never that's always in the back of my mind too, where like the pitching was holding them together at the beginning of last year because the offense was pretty bad. And this year they've kind of been even, and the pitching's been really great. The offense has been there. kind of the offense we expected a little bit. And obviously, the last couple weeks.
Yeah, the second highest scoring offense in baseball, I believe.
Yeah. So, they're doing their job, and you just hope that it's one of those continuous things that ride through the rest of the first half into the second half into the playoffs. And like we mentioned in the beginning of the show, perhaps their mindset can help them get there.
Yeah, remains to be seen. But while we're talking about signature moves and GMs who like to take big swings, across the parking lot, there's another GM who likes to take big swings, but he swings and misses an awful lot more than Dave Dombrowski does. So,
Castellanos.
Yes,
Slider.
Castellanos
Slider.
with a checkbook. So if you're looking at the Sixers this offseason, there's been 3 names in the building who are really the only ones I and a lot of fans care about staying or going. So you got Batum, you got Oubre, and you got Lowry. I'm interested to hear who, in your opinion, if you're the GM, who's coming back and who's, look, this has been a fun year. We'll see you later.
I do like Batum. Oubre is probably the one out of the 3 that I would want back the most.
Yeah.
Batum and Lowry, I could go either way with, but that's only because Lowry, like, they had no choice but to play him. So, and yeah, he played hard, but I just don't think that you're going to get a whole season of playing him that way. And
I'd rather
rely on him the way that they did in the playoffs. I don't know if that's the type of team that can take the next step if they have Lowry in a position like that. But coming off the bench, sure, but starting, I'm just not.
Nah.
I'm not sure, but I think they were kind of handcuffed anyway in the playoffs, and they kind of had to start him. But Batum, I love. Like, he could be your 3-point shooter. I don't know. Like, he was great. I would, all 3 of them, if they came back, I wouldn't hate it.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd just be about how they're used, and hopefully they round out the roster with people that can maximize all those guys. And that's what Daryl Morey has not done yet. So
no. I think I'm kind of with you. I would love to have. I think Batum's priority number 1. I think he grew into a legitimate, contributing role player the Sixers really haven't had in a long time. I would love to have Batum back. I think the only times he showed, some cracks or some slowness, he was asked to do way more than a player like Nick Piccone should have been asked to do on that kind of roster. So you got to figure if they go out and get a 3 who's not Tobias Harris, who's somewhat helpful on the offensive end, that'll take a lot of the load off Batum to just be that inlet passer, to just sit in the corner and spread the floor. Because he does those things really, really well. From all the games I've watched, nobody throws a better pass to Joel Embiid than Nick Batum. Those 2 just seem to share the same mind. So if you go out and get, a Paul George or Brandon Ingram, or none of which I'm super stoked about. But if you go get somebody who's not Tobias Harris, I think that lets Batum play the role he was supposed to play, and he'll be a lot better.
Yeah, I'm not, an X's and O's basketball guy, but I think Paul George and Brandon Ingram are pretty much the 2 best available options that they would have, right? So, either way, all I want is to see Joel Embiid win a title. Like, at this point, I don't care if it means some down years, 10 years from now, or 5 years from now. I don't care, because that dude has gone through way too much. Obviously, this past playoffs against the Knicks, like, just it was one of the very few times, and I love him, but he has had his playoff issues.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, he was trying his best. He didn't have it all, but he didn't quit. Like, we've seen him last year. Obviously, the big deal with him and Harden both quitting against the Celtics.
That was brutal.
That stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
But seeing him this year against the Knicks just plug through and just nobody stepping up around him was very frustrating. So.
Outside of Tyrese. He had those 2.
Yeah.
Tyrese, but you're right. The rest of the roster let both of them down.
That's just, you need more than 2 as well.
Yeah.
So, I felt for Tyrese too, because, he definitely would have he definitely would have benefited from better cast around him as well. So that's got to be their MO. Like, get these two the help they need. Can he do it? Who knows? But they also have the flexibility this offseason too. Hopefully they won't sign contracts that hamstring them in the future. But
like Paul George.
Yeah.
Dude's 35.
Will they be forced to? Will they think, oh, I have to do this in order to maximize Embiid's, trajectory, hopefully pass the second round? He might make those decisions too. I don't know, but man, it wasn't the backup center this time. That wasn't the issue this time. So they definitely need better bench, better people around him. Hopefully Tobias gets whatever he wants elsewhere, because I know there's a rumor out there, probably just to stir us up.
Same thing.
Just to stir us up. Morey might bring him back. Like, no.
And it worked, dude. I saw red. Get him off my team.
I said, nah, man, I'm good.
Well, I know we promised you initially we'd have you out of here in 20. We're coming up on a half hour. But I can't. I've been burying the lead long enough. I'm dying to find out like where this U started. Was it ever supposed to turn into what it has? Like, just kind of take me through that a little bit.
So, you've seen it through the years, the meme on Twitter, kind of like this U, and it's usually, somebody contradicting themselves or whatever. So I had seen a post about the Phillies schedule in the middle of May by some Braves fan. And it's like the first time I heard about people complaining about how easy the Phillies schedule was, because obviously nobody talked about that before the season, because we weren't sure how these teams would do the first month and a half of the season. So this Braves fan, not going to put him on blast, but he had said
you did enough of that already.
Is it the starting pitcher enthusiast account?
No. Luckily, I kind of ignored until today. I've ignored that guy, but
he's brutal. There's also the Bean something.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
He had said something about the schedule. The Phillies, I guess a White Sox person, beat writer. I don't know if he's technically a beat writer, but somebody that covers the White Sox had posted a graphic about, I guess teams that, or not a graphic. The Phillies have only played 3 games against teams above 500, something like that. And that White Sox persona or person that covers the team is known for some of these wacky tweets or whatever.
Okay.
So this person this Bean guy had responded to that, and that's what I saw on my feed. It might have been on the For You tab, of course. Like I try to stay away from that one, but sometimes you open the app and you're on the For You for whatever reason.
Oh yeah.
And that was the first tweet that came up, and he had said something about the Phillies having a weak schedule to start the season. So all you got to do now in today's technology, you go to their profile and you can search any keywords. And I just started searching the word schedule, and lo and behold, I didn't pay attention to this 2 years ago because the Phillies were not in the discussion for the NL East 2 years ago around this time. They were just they had just like fired Joe Girardi and stuff. So they were just trying to get right to at least make a run. The Mets were running away with the division and the Braves were behind them, but Braves were having like a so-so year so far. And they started making up ground, and the Mets fans were complaining about an easy Braves schedule. So of course Braves fans are going to, take offense to that. And they were saying like, oh, like you're complaining about the schedule. You're so lame and all this. A lot of different types of tweets from Braves fans regarding the Mets fans 2 years ago about schedules. So you just have to go on their profile and search the word of schedule. You go down, and they're the ones that are complaining about Mets fans complaining about their schedule. So the first one, I was like, oh, like, is this you complaining about, schedule, and you're or telling other people, Mets fans, to not complain about your schedule 2 years ago? And it's just kind of like a lot of people are like, oh, and I kind of thought it was funny. I didn't think people would think it was as funny, but basically turned to a bunch of Braves fans 2 years ago were complaining about the Mets fans complaining about their schedule that helped them. It was an easy schedule for them at the time, but it helped them make up that ground in the NL East for them to eventually overtake the Mets because the Mets were in free fall, second half of the year. And it was just really funny seeing that dichotomy of Braves fans making fun of Mets fans complaining about the schedule, and now the Braves fans are the ones complaining about our schedule. So, I'd say any person that came across my feed, sometimes I would get tagged under tweets, and others I would be messaged. People would DM me, be like,
"You're like a hitman.
Get this guy,
Take care of this."
All I got to do is search the profile, search the word schedule, and boom, they're complaining about Mets fans complaining about the schedule. So of course they're hypocrites. Doesn't really matter on the internet, probably not, but it's really funny. And
It's a lot of fun.
That's how I kind of, everyone's just like, I think I did like a few every day in the beginning, and then it was like once a day for about a week, and now it's kind of simmered down a little bit, but you still find those things. Honestly, one of the first ones was that Sports Talk ATL account. This was probably my favorite one. We'll segue into that. It wasn't like schedule related, but he had, I guess there was a battle between Ozuna and Ohtani for stats and everything, and all the Braves fans got upset that Ohtani was being praised and Ozuna wasn't. So that account, the Sports Talk ATL account, had said WAR is a made up stat, whatever. And literally, it wasn't even like a year ago. It was like maybe 10 months ago. They had tweeted WAR is a good all around stat, and then kind of like put out whatever, what the stat sites that they go to. So he very clearly, less than a year ago, said WAR is a good all around stat. But because Marcell Ozuna wasn't getting the respect he thought he deserved, WAR is a fake stat or a made up stat. So that might be my favorite one because that was like the most glaring one. And there have been a few glaring ones since then, but that was like the first one I think that really took off. And that account has not responded to me at all. I've done it a couple times to that.
I can guarantee it was about Acuna's MVP too. I can guarantee that's what he was using it for. I have a feeling.
Man, it's so blatant. It's like, I guess nobody really cares if they're a hypocrite on the internet, but it makes it really funny to laugh at them for. And listen, to their credit, they don't delete the tweets; they just ignore it. But it's still funny, and
they're the ones
everyone can still see it. So
they're the ones I appreciate. You'll see some of them where you'll see you catch them just 4K clear as day. And then they'll delete the post. It's like, bro, like we know you said some dumb shit down there because you deleted it.
There are a few, and it's funny when when you get that this tweet has been deleted at the bottom, but you still have the tweet there that you can screenshot. That's the best feeling. That's like a great feeling.
That's a victory.
That's a
sweet victory.
Thing. Awesome. Well, Nick, man, I appreciate you so much for coming on tonight. This was a ton of fun. I'm a big fan of that series, we'll call it. So I'm glad to finally hear the backstory on it. If you're not following them already, make sure you're following @_Piccone on Twitter. Not just for the This You stuff. The Phillies coverage is great. The use of some of the clips and the audio is completely legal and awesome, and all the fans love it. And again, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a great time.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. Go Phils.
Go Phils. All right. Till next week. It's the Passive Report. Good night.